Hello and good morning. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Good. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic and very excited to talk with you. And first of all, congratulations on the success of your writing becoming a production now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Kind of you to say.
So many authors that I speak with, always dream of that vision of, oh my God, what would it be like if this would happen? And you're actually living it right now.
Well, I have to say, I do feel a little like, Charlie Brown running for the football and worried that Lucy's going to pull it away because it is such a, lifelong dream. And I'm maybe overly good at like guarding my heart and thinking like, oh, it'll all fall apart before it happens. But all the pieces look really good. It looks very promising that this, big gay sci-fi story might actually happen.
See, and you know what? And I want to thank you for that because so many people, you know it, that over the decades have remained hidden away. You are not afraid to step out and say, here is the story.
Yeah, it felt very important to me. I think, I grew up loving science fiction. The idea of, I watched 2001 many times, and then when I found out there was a novel, I read it, cover to cover, and there's a way in which science fiction always felt either like a kind of like sexless world or a straight world. And there wasn't, a chance to see like sort of a diversity of identities represented there. So it was very much on my mind. Writing Darkness Outside Us was how to kind of broaden what we think about when we think about science fiction, as far as, having a lot of like sort of emotional content to it, but also, LGBT identities as well.
What is it about science fiction that we can't get enough of? Because I mean, today the everyday world feels like a sci-fi story.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of AI in Darkness Outside Us, but I started writing it in 2019. So wow. I was debating whether to include the artificial intelligence, because I was like, this is going to be like maybe a faddish thing. It's just coming up for a few people, and like maybe by the time the book comes out, people will be like, artificial what?
Yeah.
But then obviously we've gone in the exact opposite direction, and it is kind of something to be explored. And one of the things I love about science fiction is that you take what's true in our everyday lives and you put it in a new context, and it's like a new way to see things that are on our minds. And I think the first Star Trek series did that so brilliantly. Looked at so many of the like sort of racial dynamics of the US, of America in the 60s, and like looked at it, like what if this alien is green? But we're exploring the same questions and the same issues, and I think it's one of the reasons that we turn to science fiction.
See that you right away you take me back to NASA, and because people don't realize that Velcro actually came from up in space. They needed it up there on those space modules, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating?
And they were talking about it in books before it actually took place. That is so cool.
Yeah, it is really wild, and it's the Darkness Outside Us takes place 400 years in the future, and so just trying to imagine what that future would look like was really intimidating, because you think about like in the 1960s what they thought the year 2000 was going to be, and it was all flying cars and no internet. So it's really hard to predict where humanity's going to go.
That and Y2K. I mean, there's a generation that doesn't understand what we went through with Y2K.
Right. It was like civilization was going to end, and then the next day it was like, oh no. A friend of mine calls book release day the calm before the calm. Like you think grand things are going to happen, and it's just like life continues. And Y2K was one of those moments where it was like the eve of that was the calm before the calm.
Wow. Well, the book, The Brightness Between Us, I got to give you kudos here. Whoever designed this cover, the father looking into the eyes, I mean, that's an authentic look. Was that a real person and AI technology created this? I mean, because that's an authentic look.
Yeah, no, the cover designer, her name is Sarah Maxwell, who designed both these covers. And I don't know where she finds her inspirations for the characters, but they are, or just from her own mind, but wow. they are very, very sort of compelling and absurdly handsome characters on the front.
Well, you're right about that.
She knows what she's doing.
Oh yeah. I mean, to me, it's exactly what I think somebody is going to look at this book cover and go, I know that look, or I would love to one day receive that look.
Yeah, and that's what you dream about in a cover, right? Like it just raises a question for you about what the book will deliver that makes you want to start reading the first page. I'm fascinated and amazed when covers go right. It's not a skill set I would have, but some people really have a talent for expressing visually what's going on in the words.
One of the things that you cover inside this, in fact, you do this a lot. You're so good at this. You ask a lot of questions, and it actually creates questions in our own heart. How does humankind survive itself? Oh my God, Eliot, come on.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, I think, one of the lines in Darkness Outside is that readers either wrote to me saying like that they got it tattooed or it just mattered a lot to them was that intimacy is the only shield against insanity.
Right.
And I just wrote that in a scene. It just sort of came up because the character was trying to figure out, what his true mission is and realized that this connection to this other astronaut on the ship is the only way that he was going to keep his mind together, was through this love. And I think, this history of the space program, we just drafted Air Force pilots to become our first astronauts. And the initial conceptions of what would be hard about space travel were all about just the physical demands on the body, but not really thinking about the mentality of astronauts and what they would be going through. And you think about it, you're hurtling in this relatively tiny object going through open space, and the psychological demands of that are so intense. And with the two main characters in Darkness Outside Us, it was kind of exploring two different approaches. One of them tries to just drive out all emotions and just be an instrument in a like a machine, and the other one is much more emotionally sensitive and wants to connect. And so it's a way of looking at how do you move forward when you're against all odds? And I think the answer is almost always about intimacy and connection, however it comes.
Yeah, but you bring up a great point there, because we all assume that these astronauts that are really up there right now are all the same kind of machine. But you give us that reason to believe, no, we're all individuals no matter what. And it's through that connection that they are able to bring, survival. Yeah.
When you look at, all the animal studies around sort of the welfare of animals. And if you take an orphaned animal, the first thing that needs to happen isn't giving it food and water and shelter. It is finding a new parent for that creature. Yeah. Otherwise they will not survive. Our emotions exist in the context of other people's emotions, and we can't be islands and totally self-sufficient and protected. And I think back to sort of the bloodbath of all my failed relationships in my 20s. And it's all about I had learned oh no, I'm fine. I don't have, I don't have deep feelings. I'm just cool as a cucumber. And that doesn't make someone a great partner to the people around them. It's through our vulnerabilities that we connect. And so I think, just recognizing and acknowledging that we are emotional beings is especially hard for men in our culture. Yeah. Because we're kind of taught to drive that out and not cry and not have those feelings. But that is ultimately a kind of a dead end road. Well, don't you see yourself as being a teacher and or a vessel to open up that the real trueness of it? Yeah, it's a tricky balance to figure out as a novelist, because I want to give the context for people to have thoughts and explore their own feelings around it. But the moment a book tips over to feeling that it's teaching a lesson or it's didactic, that feeling where you're oh, it kind of deflates the whole reading experience, where you start to feel lectured to. So I love raising questions, and I'm kind of careful to stop myself from trying to provide answers to it. But you do so well. Where can people go to find out more about you, your writing, and of course, when is the production going to hit the big screen? So I have a website, EliotSchrefer.com, that people can find out more. I'm on the usual places, Instagram and Facebook and all of that. And you can find the book in your local bookstore and at chains. And yes, I'm very, very excited about the film. Eliot Page has optioned the property to make into film, and I can't give details, but we have a major studio that just lined up in a substantial way behind it. So, there's still plenty of room for Hollywood to do its thing and slow things down, but things look very promising that we'll have a movie sooner rather than later of The Darkness Outside Us. Well, I expect to talk to you before that movie's released. Sounds good. Yeah, bring me back. Excellent. I would talk to you anytime. Well, you be brilliant today, okay? Thank you so much. I really appreciate this, Arrow. This is great.